Hello everyone and welcome to Werewolf the Apocalypse Purgatory. So I don't know a whole lot about this game. The one thing that I do know about this game that really made me want to play it was that this is a part of the World of Darkness universe. World of Darkness includes Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, like Shadows of New York, Coteries of New York, things like that. I've only actually played Coteries of New York. I played Shadows of New York, or at least I started playing it. I actually have a stream that I started playing it as a bit of a test thing. I never actually finished it. And I played a couple of the mobile games that came out a few years back. There was one for vampires that was really neat, had a lot of interesting artwork and stuff like that. Coming from somebody that turns around and plays a choice of games a lot of times, it was very interesting seeing, an interactive game with, actual art and things like that in it. So quite interesting. And there was also a mage game. The mage game was also pretty neat as well. I know there were a lot of time mechanics in there and stuff. It was pretty good. The story got a little edgy towards the end. It was very, very edgy. Kind of put me off actually when I got towards the end. But for the most part, I've really enjoyed looking at the lore for the World of Darkness. I love the vampire things with the Ventru and stuff like that. I've always wanted to play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines myself. I have it. I've just not gotten around to it because of work and every other thing in between. And maybe I'll play that on the channel after we get done. It was actually my plan to try to play Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines before the second one comes out, even though the second one, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I want to go ahead and check this out. I just happened to randomly be going around and looking at my Steam queue, trying to find games to kind of, go ahead and get at least some gameplays up. And I saw that this was actually a thing. And apparently this is the second one in the series. I believe the actual full game comes out either later on this month or next month sometime. So it's coming hot. It's coming pretty soon actually, but I wanted to give it a look and see how it goes. So let's go ahead and jump on into this and see how it goes, shall we? Introduction, Samira Ramani. I am Samira Ramani, a Garu of Afghanistan. Garu, the term werewolves use for themselves. Okay. Sworn to fight alongside my fellow werewolves to protect Gaia and her inhabitants from the Wyrm. Rage drove every step as I tore my enemies to pieces over and over and over again. But the humans have taken too much, and an anger battles despair as I wonder, are they even worth fighting for? In this game, the choices you make will affect who you were, who you are, how you fight, and who you will become. So, Samir Ramani, it is time to choose. What is your story? So yeah, of course, if the name didn't give it away, you will be playing as a werewolf. And that's also another thing that I do remember about the World of Darkness lore. I know the vampires in different areas have different names. I think like the Middle Eastern vampires are, more like the La Sombra or something like that. And I know that the African vampires also have their own names and own kind of style of things, very similar to American vampires and the European vampires and stuff like that. But I always thought that was pretty neat and pretty cool. So kind of infusing actual mythology with it and such. Choose one physical skill. Using a skill can be risky but rewarding. Athletics, stealth, survival. Athletics, an aptitude for physical activities such as running, jumping, and climbing. Stealth, spying, sneaking, and blending in are your areas of expertise. The ability to live and navigate through the wilderness and harsh conditions. So, I think since this is a werewolf, I would like to be more on the athletic side. So yeah, let's go with that. Your physical skill is athletics. As a young Garu, you learned how to channel your werewolf strength to run, fight, jump, and dodge faster than normal humans. Choose one social skill. Animal kin. Animals usually avoid the Garu, but your ability allows you to manage and befriend them. Interesting. Intimidation, the power to coerce, interrogate, and threaten to ensure others do exactly what you want. And then persuasion, proficiency in verbal negotiations and arguments to convince others to follow your way of thinking. You know, usually I'm more of the charmer, rogue kind, but again, I'm a werewolf this time around, so I want to be more of the brute, I guess you can say, more of the hot-blooded type. So I'll go with intimidation. Though this is not the poster child of intimidation. You use your threatening words and fear-inducing actions to ensure others know and respect that you are a Garou. Choose one mental skill, the occult, a deep knowledge and understanding of the spiritual world, including rites and the Umbra. What is that? I want to see it, but I don't want to click on it because that means I'm going to choose it. Let's see, medicine, a healer of people and animals, and an expert medical knowledge. Okay, technology, proficiency in handling modern technology, from computers and phones to surveillance systems. That probably would have synergized well with the stealth side. I think I'm gonna go ahead and go with medicine, though I feel like medicine may have gone well with more of a probably more of a persuasive side. You're proficient in healing human, beast, and werewolf in the fight against the Wyrm, and have a sixth sense about causes of death and disease. The Wyrm, manifestation and symbol of evil, entropy, and decay in Garou belief. Interesting. Rage filled my heart the day my parents died, the day my country was taken over yet again, this time by forces from within. Rage is a double-edged sword. Low rage allows you to make wise decisions, but your caution may cause you to falter when action is needed. High rage can enable you to fight against the evil that consumes your world, but it can also overwhelm, threatening to destroy the humanity within. That's another thing I kind of know about the World of Darkness lore. I know with vampires, of course, they have, I think it's called the beast within inside of them. Basically, they have to drink blood. If they don't, they get out of control and stuff like that. So, yeah, you got to have some type of balance, of course. You don't want vampires just being ridiculously powerful. So, well, I prefer to think before I act. I'm okay with anger when it's useful. Fuck the consequences, let's fight. While I am much more on the physical side this time around, let's go with medium. As a Garou, I would finally do something about it all. Your rage is balanced. Being a raging werewolf is fun, but sometimes wisdom is needed. Depression is what the doctors call it, but to Garou, Harano is a taste of despair unique to werewolves as you face repeated losses in your fight against the Wyrm. Be warned, high Harano will cause your decisions to be clouded with despair, and you will be unable to shapeshift into your Hispo, the near wolf form of the Garou, or Krinos form, the half-wolf, half-human war form of the Garou. The apocalyptic fight may be bleak, but you are armed with skills, rage, and a pack of savage, like-minded werewolves by your side. In a world like this, will you fight the endless battle, or will the despair consume you? Yeah, let's fight. Your Harano is low. I am Samira Rahmani, a Garou of Afghanistan. Let's destroy this Wyrm, one battle at a time. Character sheet. To review your choices, check out your character sheet and journal. Look for it in the upper right corner of the screen. You can find loads of useful info about Samira, her background, personality goals, and so on there. Okay. Prologue, Journey's End. Start the chapter. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. That was neat. So it really is kind of just like an actual character sheet from the tabletop game. If I haven't mentioned that before, yes, World of Darkness, the various forms they have, including mage, vampire, so on and so forth. It is a tabletop series. So Again, this isn't something that I normally get into because tabletop, I don't got friends like that. So, but it would be neat to turn around and do something like that. Maybe I can, I know me and my wife have talked about it several times. Maybe getting a tabletop game and starting it. So, yeah. Run, whispered the moon. I prepared to fight, or I was cautious. Let's be cautious. My tense senses were on high alert as I looked around at the bone-white snow and the stark trees, but nothing happened as I continued onwards. Kazim ran by my side, my hand gripping his thin arm as we raced alongside the border of Belarus and Poland, searching desperately for a way through the barbed wire fencing that pitilessly barred our way. The cutting, raging snow blinded our eyes in the freak storm, a series of bad luck and the never-ending tragedy that had begun months prior when the Taliban had overtaken my country once more. Hurry! I felt a clawing of panic within me. The guards were no match for a werewolf, but Kazim, my brother, was only a human, and a child at that. The guards would not hesitate to strike him down. Variant indicates that this version of the story happened because of your current stats. I wanted to destroy them all before they had the chance. Tendrils of red began to suffuse the corners of my vision when I felt a small hand grabbing mine. The fury instantly abated as I took a deep breath, squeezing Kazim's hand reassuringly. It's all right, I promised, my voice carried away on the howling wind as he smiled, pretending to believe it. This border was meant to be our last hope. Our promised entry to the EU after the long, treacherous journey from Afghanistan. Instead, hope had turned to horror as we found scores of gaunt refugees crowded together in an undulating sea of desperation that pushed fruitlessly against the border. Families cramped and huddled around fireplaces and within raged tents, if they were lucky. I guess now, see, if I had survival skills, that might be better. But in this case, we'll go with we were one of the lucky ones. We were one of the lucky ones. But even a tent would not stop the freezing grasp of the coming winter that loomed like the mountains of my homeland over us all. The violence of Polish guards and a razor-sharp barbed wire fencing were stopping us from getting in, while Belarusian soldiers were preventing us from getting out. We were trapped, like a mahi caught in a net, as we gasped for air and freedom. And so we had traveled far from the camp, hoping, praying to Gaia to help us find a way through in the deathly stillness of night. You must escape. Mahi means fish in Dari, the language spoken in northern Afghanistan. And of course, Gaia is the earth, in both a physical and spiritual sense, the mother goddess. Let's see. How about where? Where, I asked. There was no answer. As far as I looked, the barbed wire stretched ever forth, a delicate ornamentation that sliced through the forest. Fresh snow draped over the smooth paths on either side, concealing the graves of the trees that the guards had torn down to make way for the silver ribbon of pain. My eyes frantically roamed the fencing as we ran. Over there, the barbed wire lay in shadows, but I could nearly make out something in its mist. Let me survey the area. Your place in the werewolf society will be determined by your renown. Win glory through defeating mighty enemies and succeeding at dangerous quests. Gain honor by following your moral imperative and upholding the laws of the Garu. Accumulate wisdom by acting efficiently and thinking well before you act. Your renown will change as you play, contributing to Samira's legend among the Garu. The area nearest the fence could be treacherous. I rapidly scanned it, but all appeared safe as I cautiously approached, a shadowed form taking shape. The corpse of a rabbit, a face, a tattered backpack. Let's go with a tattered backpack. The tattered canvas of a backpack that now lay in shredded ribbons As I moved it gingerly aside, my heart beat excitedly as I stared at the hole in the fencing beside it. This was our chance to escape. My alert senses picked up the crunching of footsteps approaching as we dashed back into the woods, just in time as we watched a guard march along the fence where we had stood. Motioning to Kazim, we melted into the forest, putting distance between ourselves and the soldiers before we took off running once more. Glints of the barbed wire shone at the corners of my eyes as we ran onwards. In turn, the gleam of a flashlight, the eyes of a guard, the edge of a gun. The hunters seeking the child at my side as they prey as we ran faster and faster, searching frantically for any way through. Another burst of light. Once I recognized with relief as that of Luna's as she shone gaily from behind the clouds, revealing at last a small gap beneath the silver that barred our way. Snow crowded greedily at the torn edges of the fencing, but it would be a matter of moments to clear it. Moments we did not have. And of course, Luna's the moon, Luna's the spirit of the moon, and Gaia's sister. Moments we did not have, for the moonlight also shone upon the hunter which I had feared. A Belarusian border guard headed our way. Flickers of light and smoke momentarily illuminated harsh features above a smoldering cigarette as he paused by the fence before turning about face to scan the other way. I'll go ahead and take him. I sprinted recklessly towards the guard, my feet silent across the surface from years of racing across snow-capped mountains. At the last moment he sensed my presence, turning his face just as I connected with my fist, strengthened with the power of wolves. With a satisfying crunch, he dropped unconscious into the snow, my heart racing with exultation. I quickly covered his body with the powdered snow to hide him, not caring if he lived or died as long as it ensured our safety. I motioned for Kazim to come over as we cleared the snow. Kazim scurried beneath the fence, like a hare fleeing the snow leopards that snapped at their heels. As he wriggled through, Kazim's coat caught in the fence's razor-sharp clutches. I shoved him forward, following close behind as we at last made it safely to Poland. A piece of his torn coat clenched within the barbed wire's silver hands, our final sacrifice to the border. We had only made it a few hurried steps into Poland when an ancient forest loomed abruptly before us, menacing in its suddenness. The thick line of trees melded together as one against the blackness of night and the white snow that violently battered at this vanguard of the woods, the frozen wave of a dark sea. I don't know if I have knowledge like that. Let's just say I had just learned about this forest recently. Our journey through Belarus was the first time I had heard of this vast primeval wilderness. Poziza Balawiska, they called it. Bialauza Forest. Thousands of tiny wooden arms above reached plaintively away from their trunks towards the border, as if seeking to reunite with their brethren on the other side, or perhaps seeking their kin that had long stood beside them, now ruthlessly wiped away for a frozen valley and its silver river. A river I wished to put far behind me as I rushed forward into the embrace of the trees as the forest swallowed us whole. It felt like home. Although it was nothing like the mountain valley and open skies I had left behind, it reminded me, somehow, of my home, of the cairn I had left behind in Afghanistan. As we entered the shadowed woodlands, the feeling grew, enveloping me in its warmth, smothering me in its safety. Cairn. A cairn is a spiritual place of power around with a Sept, a group of werewolves, gather. Let's just say I slowed down. As I slowed, Kazim looked at me in surprise. Samira, what is it? He asked. The smell of sheer chai wafted toward me, the scent of my favorite tea filling me with an ache so sharp I could barely breathe. And then it was gone. Will Aunt Khadijah come get us? Kazim whispered, the sound making me start in the oppressive hush silence of the dark forest. Yes, once we're out of the woods, we can find a phone and call her, I whispered back as he looked relieved. Warsaw isn't very far, so we might even see her by tomorrow. Her apartment is amazing. You'll really like her apartment, I promise. The one you stayed in while you were in university? He asked as I nodded. Yes, exactly. And we'll have rot and sambosa and brewed tea for breakfast every day. Kazim's eyes shone brightly, but I could not help but glance guiltily at his too thin body. It had been far too long since we had a home-cooked meal, having to rely on food we had bartered and brought, or meat I had caught as a garu. Stop right there. The beam of a torch blazed through the forest, illuminating Kazim and I frozen against the birch trees. Run, Luna's voice intertwined with the sirens that suddenly pierced the night sky. We dashed desperately through the forest, the branches of the trees grabbing at us, bramble bushes clinging to our legs. Indicates that you could lose or gain points as a result of choosing this line. I think if I had better survival, I could probably search for an easier route, but I don't, so I'm just going to shove them out of the way. Red blazed across my eyes. In my fury, I shredded the branches in front of us before noticing the flash of fear in Kazim's eyes. I looked away, grabbing his arm and pulling him forward until we burst into an open clearing. The flaming orange leaves of autumn now lay entombed in the ivory snow that lay over the clearing like a shroud, smothering falling logs that rose up gasping from the ground in one final, hopeless attempt to return to their place in the sky. Don't move. The pristine hay-lined veneer was broken with a loud crack like the sound of breaking bones. Two border guards stepped forward across from us, assault rifles gripped threateningly in their hands. Raise your arms, one of them yelled, his face set and cruel. Any empathy long exterminated. Okay. Make us, I snarled. The guards signaled as I felt two more guards appear behind us, a German shepherd at their side. One twisted my arm violently. We can make you, he laughed as he easily shoved me forward into the snow. I stumbled, nearly losing my balance, but managing to stay upright as the fury grew. My mind raced, searching for a way out. Some choices may strain your health or willpower. I think I lost one willpower. I did see something move in the corner of my eye, but I didn't see what it was. When you lose all your health or willpower, you become impaired. This will make physical tasks if you have 0 health, or social and mental tasks if you have 0 of the fists, harder and sometimes impossible. Oh, willpower. Okay, I can use intimidation. Let us go. A flash of the wolf blazed in my eyes as the guards in front of us took an unconscious step back. Are you scared of this little girl? The mocking voice from the guard behind us shook the others out of the spell, their fearful look morphing to hatred. Pain lanced across my vision. Oh, crap. As I fell forward, the guard behind me had cruelly shoved me to the ground as the other men laughed. My body shook with suppressed rage as Kazim pleaded with me with his dark, frightened eyes. But the time for cowering hiding was over, for I could see in their eyes that we were merely rats that had escaped from their cage, and we could either obediently return there or be put down. But I was no rat. Homid is the human form, perfect for talking and manipulating things. Globro is strong enough to lift heavy things without breaking a sweat and intimidate. Krenos is a war form, a ruthless killing machine. There's nothing subtle about it. Hispo is a monstrous wolf, smart, fast, heavy, and absolutely scary. Lupus is the wolf form, a majestic animal with all its advantages and limitations. I shapeshifted. I am going to shapeshift into a Hispo. Yeah. I also like that you can actually choose which form that you're going to change into, so that's neat. Yeah, Hispo. I was Hispo, the monstrous wolf form. I was more than a wolf. My spine cracked and twisted, my knees and ankles broke, and I fell on the ground. My jaw shattered and rearranged itself. My whole skin was on fire, rippling and sprouting fur. I howled in agony. When I rose, panting and spitting blood, I was Hispo, with strong paws, mighty jaws, and a mane of fur. More than a wolf, scary and monstrous. A primordial being on all fours, my monstrous body drew the petrified gazes of the guards. I attacked. I took advantage of this hesitancy and leapt forward, my fangs and claws sinking into the nearest guard's body. I heard him gurgle, blood flowing over his lips. The guards yelled and I felt the crack of a baton on my body. If I could laugh, I would. They really thought that was enough to stop me? I saw one of them raise their gun, but I was too fast, too strong for them as I leapt at him. I knew the others would start firing any second, so I must be quicker than them. A sudden howling of wolves filled my ears as I recognized the cries of my kin. Garou launched into the clearing, shining fangs tearing at the guards. But this was my fight. I took advantage of the chaos and turned on the guards nearest me, claws extending as I swiped at their face. Blood spurting gloriously up from the slash marks. I had no time to enjoy my victory though. As I turned to the next guard, a gleeful rage filled me as my fangs sank into his chest, claws tearing off his arm. He screamed once and then no more. The other guards were no match for me, and in a few short bloody moments, it was all over. Jeez. Silence crept in as the clouds cleared above. Luna shining benevolently down on the crimson blood that was painted in chaotic lines across the white snow. I shapeshifted back. Well, that got my rage down, and it also got my Hirano down completely, so I'm good, except for health. Might need to get that up. The wolves and I shapeshifted back into our Hamid forms, a previous rite of dedication ensuring our clothes returned as well. Huh. One of the Balawiza Garou approached me, my body still heaving with the change. Thanks for the help, I said gratefully. I'm glad we got here in time. These border soldiers, she looked at them, the fury of the wolf still evident in her eyes. She introduced herself as Maya, another as Kim and Daniel. Their names blurred together in my head after the events of the night, and I started to feel faint, but I needed to stay strong for Kazim. Kazim, I realized he was no longer by my side as a ragged panic started to claw within my chest. I scanned the clearing. The wolves, the bodies. Where was he? I scanned again, feeling my breath choking me, but he was nowhere to be found. Amongst the wolves? No. In the forest? The bodies? The bodies. The panic violently tore at me as I stared at the ravaged bodies in the snow, one smaller than the rest. My terrified gaze locked onto the ravaged bodies of the soldiers, a small dark form lying beside them. Kazim! I screamed my brother's name, rushing over as I collapsed down beside him. but I could see it was already too late. Blood stained the front of his clothes as his sightless eyes stared wide up at the moon. As if in a cursed trance, I turned my head, heart pounding dully, and the sounds around me fading as I followed his gaze. The clouds rushed in waves away from the center of the night sky as I saw her face. The brightness now turned to a dulled, deathly gray as a mocking voice echoed in my mind. I told you to run. Now I wonder if he could have actually survived that. I get the feeling that he was going to die one way or the other, but that sucks. Return to Warsaw. Luna's mocking voice echoed in the cloying darkness of my room as the vision of the past faded away. During the day, these memories were kept far at bay, but once the light fell, they eagerly crowded at the edge of my mind, ceaselessly repeating the shifting, strident melodies. Some nights, Luna was helpful and kind. Others, like tonight, she was mocking and cruel. Sometimes she said nothing at all. I preferred Luna in one way. I mean, I would prefer the moon be kind, considering the moon always screwed me in Fear and Hunger. Her kindness felt soft and warm, keeping me sane for a brief moment, but all the harder to return to reality in the morning. Several long months had passed since that night, since that had happened. My aunt, Khadija, a Garu from my Sept in Afghanistan who had moved to Warsaw years before, had taken me in, even getting me a part-time job at her girlfriend's bar, Apocalypsa, a secret meeting place and hangout spot for the local Garu. I was grateful for the job. I knew many of the other refugees had struggled to find work, and I was happy to have a way to pay back Khadija for allowing me to stay with her. And yet, a small, cynical part of me wondered why even bother pursuing my university degree in the first place, studying medicine. I had completed my degree in medicine at the Medical University of Warsaw. I had hoped to return to Afghanistan and become a doctor there, but those hopes had been dashed. Upon my return this autumn, I had eventually tried to fit back into the city to be less of a burden to Khadija. I had tried to find a job. But no one wanted to hire a refugee. No matter that I had a degree from this city, they took one look at my name or my face, and I had never heard from them again. Eventually, I had given up. What was the point in going outside when everything turned dark and gray and memories floated through every stranger's face? I had heard Khadija whispering of Harano to Victoria, her girlfriend, the Garu despair. I had fought against it, but I had felt it grasping at my heart every day with a new intensity, and I worried it would soon consume me. I shoved the thought of Khadija down as I turned on my side. Thin black curtains drawn across the window, the moon just beyond, her voice a beckoning call. I answered her call. Something moved within me as for the first time in a long while, I stepped to the window and threw open the blinds to answer her call. Staring out over the Warsaw cityscape, a solid, jagged line of buildings stood dim and gloomy, with Luna shining high above it all. Her form tonight was the same as the night of my first change into a werewolf. This form had also determined my role in the pack, my auspice. First change? The first time a human turns into their werewolf form and learns who they really are, often a moment of rage, death, and chaos. I wonder if becoming a werewolf is just like purely genetic, or like, can you get infected with it? Like, is it like how it is in like Elder Scrolls and stuff, where if it gets in your blood, then you can actually become a werewolf and so on and so forth? Or maybe all people have the ability to do it and something has to unlock? Choosing your auspice. Oh, so I'm guessing this is like the different bloodlines in for the vampires. Ragabash, a new moon. I was a Ragabash, a trickster who challenges traditions. Luna's favor had also granted me a gift, blissful ignorance, the ability to become invisible through the power of a chameleon spirit. Huh. What is this? Thurge? A crescent moon. I was a Thurge, a mystic and friend to spirits. Luna's favor had also granted me a gift, living ward, a shield against lesser spirits that sought to harm, gained through the power of a wolf spirit. Okay. A half moon. I was a Philidor, a judge and arbiter. Luna's favor had also granted me a gift, a sense of the past, the ability to catch glimpses of the past via scent through the power of a crow spirit. Okay, I'm kind of leaning towards you. Oh, excuse me, Philodox. This is a Galliard, a gibbous moon, a storyteller, musician, and lore keeper. Song of Serenity, a song that recalled peaceful times and lowered rage. Huh. And then lastly, a rune, a full moon, a warrior and a leader. Hare's leap, the ability to jump great distances horizontally or vertically, gained through the power of a hare spirit. Okay. So it looks like I'm either going to choose a rune or Philodox, judge and arbiter. Yeah, I did say I was going to be more physical, and this seems like this would help a lot more. So let's go with that. The first into a fight, I had fought the Wyrm spirits across northern Afghanistan. Fighting seemed less appealing now. The character sheet includes gifts received after selecting your auspice and tribe, and items picked up as you travel through the story. Items are single use only. Once they are used in a choice, they are removed from your inventory. Let's see, do I have anything? I'm healthy. I got this gift. And I'm seen to be pretty friendly with everybody, so there's that. I wonder if you can reasonably like max out all this stuff within the game. I'm guessing the full game is going to be much longer, but yeah, I wonder if it's actually reasonable to max out all of this stuff. I would imagine that would be nearly impossible. So, and I guess the same thing with like your skills. Like, could you possibly get all the other skills? I'm going to assume that's a no, because you would have to be all the different moons, but yeah. Let's see. Luna's form soon became obscured as the memory started to play once more. The voice of the moon intoning monotonously as I fell back into bed. The void of the ceiling above transformed to a vision of the past as I lay there trapped, waiting and willing for dawn. Breakfast with Khadijah. Dawn's morning rays filtered into the room as I finally got up. I headed down to the kitchen, led by the aromatic smells of a breakfast wafting through the hallway, which meant Khadijah was already up, which meant conversation. I had debated finding some means of escape. The window. Yeah, I really don't like being that social. But I'm also not terrible at it. I mean, I always tell people I have 8 hours of tolerance, and then after that it gets a little dicey. I guess I cannot do the athletics, and I can just say might as well get it over with. Though this might affect my Hirano now that I think about it. Shit. Might as well get it over with. She'd notice I was up soon no matter what. One of the perks of living with a Garu. Khadijah sat cross-legged on an embroidered cushion on the floor, watching the news as they interviewed Helena Zelenska, a Sajim politician popular for her aid to the Ukrainian refugees. Sejm, the lower house in the Polish parliament. Let's see, I listened in. That costs willpower, though. Yeah, I'm gonna not. I tuned it out. I didn't feel like listening to the news today. Khadijah quickly flicked off the TV as she noticed me enter, turning to face me. Her thick black hair was pulled loosely back in a high bun that accentuated her sweetheart face. Despite being from Afghanistan, a country of majority Muslims where women were expected to cover their hair, we had grown up obeying only the litany, a fact we had to conceal whenever we left our sept. Litany, a set of tenets that has long governed werewolf society, it has received criticism in modern times. Okay. And we already saw what a sept was. Although usually careful when I left our sept's village to follow traditions, I had accidentally been caught once on my own by a stray traveler while exploring the Hindu Kush mountains. I had confronted him. He had been shocked, his eyes bulging at my audacity. And then they had bulged in fear as he ran away, sprinting in the opposite direction as I revealed my true nature. A maroon tablecloth woven with delicate geometric patterns was spread in front of Khadijah, upon which rested breakfast dishes of wrought eggs fried with vegetables, paneer cheese, sambosa, and my favorite, sheer chai tea. We owned a table, but we both had spent too many years eating this way to change it for Warsaw customs. Breakfast? Yes, thank you. Thank you for the meal. I washed my hands and sat beside Khadijah. Using my right hand, I scooped up some eggs with the wrought, forcing a mouthful. Bland. Everything tasted so bland these days. I could feel Khadijah watching me with a worried look on her face as I choked down another bite. Listen, Samira, I know things have been tough since. She paused at the look on my face. But I worry about you. You're so smart, and I know that there's a company out there that would love to hire you. Yeah, they're beating down the door. I tried to muster some enthusiasm. Thanks. I'm sure I'll find something eventually, I said, trying to smile. Khadijah smiled warmly in return. That's the spirit. We finished eating and washed up. After the meal, Khadijah turned to me, fishing a small package out of her purse. I've got to deliver this to Ilona. Think you could take it for me? Sure, I guess. Mystery package. A small package given to you by Khadijah to deliver to Ilona, the head of the Warsaw Sept. Also, now that I think about it, wasn't Sambosa something that was in Suzerain? Not sure, but I feel like I've heard that name before. Let's see. Great. She looked like she wanted to say more, but she handed it to me, kissing me on the forehead before she grabbed her things and left. I sighed heavily, wishing that I had denied her request. Looking down at the package in my hand, I examined it closely. I wondered what Khadijah would need delivered personally to the head of our Sept, the group of werewolves packs that resided in Warsaw. Let me put it in my bag. Gave me some willpower. Nice. I stuffed it into my bag. Whatever, none of my business. I half-heartedly got ready to go, finally leaving the apartment and locking the heavy door behind me with our old-fashioned bronze key. Taking the creaky 100-plus-year-old lift down to the ground floor, I stepped out onto the frosty Warsaw streets, my breath billowing in the air as I exhaled. The Cairn awaited. Okay. Got rid of some of my depression. Unexpected encounter. My university friends had expected I would have a hard time in the winter, but to my surprise, I had found the temperature similar to my home deep in the northern Afghanistan mountains. I shivered as a cold breeze sliced at my face. Even if I was used to it, it didn't mean I enjoyed it. It's like the summer in the South. Just because I'm used to it does not mean I like it. I hate it so much. I picked up the pace, heading quickly towards the Cairn, the spiritual center of the Garu Sept, and where Ilona, our leader, could be found. I knew a faster way. I walked briskly through the city, heading away from the main street. When I had first moved to Warsaw, the city had overwhelmed me. The enormous crowded skyscrapers, the rushing people, and the streets filled with the toxic fumes from cars, trucks, and buses. So very different from the quiet mountains and tiny villages of my homeland. Well, being that Tuscaloosa is quite small, and I've moved to Birmingham, and I have quite enjoyed it up here, I'll go with I preferred the city. Once I had adjusted, however, I found to my surprise that I preferred the city. Although our Sept had obtained a few small comforts due to our international contacts and our ability to hunt as wolves, we had still lived a plain life that I did not miss here amidst the luxuries of Warsaw. I brushed the thoughts from me as I came upon a towering wall of concrete, the uppermost edge coated in splintered glass to deter intruders. If I were any other person, it may have done so, but it could not keep me out. With a single fluid leap, I easily cleared the top, landing lightly in an abandoned lot. As I walked, my gaze was drawn to a mass of fragmented stones, the smaller ones resembling tiny broken bones formed into a dozen miniature figures. Did I make a mistake? Fingers that began to twitch. Horror filled me as I watched the stones lift themselves up from the ground, multiple hands of broken rubble fusing together. With a sudden rapidity, the crumbling, spider-like monstrosity began crawling in a tumbling zigzag line towards me. I warily backed up, poised to attack, but as I watched, the stones began to lose their form. They slowly crumbled to pieces as the digits fell off one by one, until only a final beckoning finger of stone lay curled on the dirt before me. My mind raced over what I had seen. I felt disappointment. I felt disappointment as being denied a fight. The spirit had long gone, but perhaps Alona would know more. The Cairn of Warsaw. Undercurrents of spiritual energy filled the air, swirling mistily around me as I stepped out onto the road across from the old Gasworks Coliseum. Our Cairn, home to the Sept of Warsaw. Gasworks Coliseum was a mottled blood rust red and gray brick structure that, despite its dilapidation, towered with a fierce pride against the grim, overcast skies. A place of ferocity where spiritual power raged forth from every brick, declaring itself as the stronghold of the Garu. While the Warsaw Sept had claimed a part of their city as their own, my Cairn in Afghanistan resided within a natural rock cave set high and deep in the Hindu Kush mountains, with delicate veins of emeralds lining the walls of the circular chamber. And yet, they both exuded the same power of the wild, of nature, of the earth that connected us all. I crossed the empty road, approaching the wall as the pulses of spiritual energy grew stronger. The wild manifestation and symbol of pure change, the chaos of transmutation and elemental force. It drew me in. A fierceness to match the cairns rose within me as I eagerly stepped forward into the flowing wave of rage. Though long since abandoned, the Gasworks Coliseum still lay within the city's bounds, and as the decades passed, security had increased in the form of cameras and security guards, forcing the Sept to devise ways to protect it from wandering eyes. Blood protection. Our Cairn's leader, Ilona, had spread the borders of the Cairn with her own blood in an act of territorial dominance, protecting and guarding the land from outsiders. Leaders past had once utilized their own urine, but after a few too many brisk north winds, the previous Karn leader had suggested switching to blood, a suggestion unanimously accepted by the rest of the Sept. The most important defense, though, was the Karn itself, a living ward which held a powerful guardian spirit that fiercely protected its home. I had sensed it. Only the once when I had attended a moot, a Garou meeting while in university. Barely even a glimmer of a feeling, but it had left a deep impression on my mind ever since. As I approached, a thick wall of gray concrete topped with barbed wire came into view. Another reason I had avoided coming here after my return to Warsaw. I'll use the main entrance. No need to be rude. I used the main entrance, a hidden gate disguised as a section of the wall. The way through was openable via one of the many graffitied artworks that covered the concrete. Let's say the moon. A hyper-realistic portrait of Luna splayed across the wall, but with the craters instead portrayed as gaping wounds of blackened shadow. I had often wondered if Garou had created this, some thurge haunted by a terrifying portent, or if it had been a fortuitous coincidence. Quickly slipping through, the wall immediately snapped shut behind me. I entered the abandoned lot surrounding the cairn, a desolate stretch of straggling wild grasses and patches of parched dirt covered intermittently with piles of decaying snow. The overcast skies ahead parted as the sun streamed forth upon the grim cairn, highlighting the rust red of the outer walls and accentuating the darkness within. As the gleaming rays shone down, they touched upon an object out of place amidst the dusky snow. A silver pendant? A silver pendant. What the hell was this doing here? I picked it up as I examined it. Silver only harmed us in our werewolf forms, but it was still unusual to see it within our domain. Let's see, a silver pendant, dangerous to werewolves but harmless to humans. Items can only be used once, yeah. Better safe than sorry, I thought as I pocketed it. You have received the item silver pendant. As I continued walking, Alona appeared from the cairn's entrance, her towering form casting a lengthy shadow upon the ground as she strode up to me. Khadijah had told me about her past when I had first arrived. Her identity as a trans woman, her family, her ascension to Sept leadership. Sure, her identity as a trans woman. Better way to kick off Pride. Her identity as a trans woman. Although Poland had strict laws, even forcing one to sue their own family, Alona had been able to transition to her true self, while my own country was even less welcoming. I had fortunately grown up in a constantly shifting Garou community that had welcomed anyone and everyone. Samira, it's been a while. She regarded me with an indecipherable expression. Her low tenor voice remained neutral, but I sensed an underlying meaning to her words. It has. I matched her gaze, a hint of defiance in my eyes, ready to meet her questions. But she just scrutinized me closely, then nodded, accepting my answer. Again, no need for me to be rude. The heart of the Sept, known as neutral, 0. I wonder what past could have got me to have a better situation with her. Ilona jerked her head sharply towards the Colosseum and turned to walk away. I followed her sheepishly through the abandoned lot a few paces behind, stepping through the dim, spreading shadow that emanated from the towering building. I followed Ilona into the old Colosseum. Karn is friendly +2. The broken panes of glass from the numerous windows embedded in the Colosseum walls allowed sunlight to seep in from all sides, lazily painting glowing diamonds upon the packed soil. A thin, rusting gray staircase encircled the inner wall of the Karn, rising up to a balcony that would fill with the rest of the Sept during a moot, but now stood empty. Spread out across the ground floor of the Karn, I could see the forms of various Garou from different tribes, an aura of menace surrounding them even in their human form. I awkwardly waved hello, sure. All my awkward wave received, however, were expressions ranging from contempt to disdain, and I quickly lowered my hand. I knew my Hirano state was not seen in a positive light, but this seemed even more antagonistic than usual. Oh, this would give me Hirano. This would give me rage. Sure. It was infuriating. We were part of the same Sept, weren't we? And yet, just because of this Hirano, this despair, the rest of the Garou treated me like a pariah. Even if there was some other reason, why not just say it to my face? As I observed which Garou were present that day, I noticed members of my own tribe amongst them. And I mean, we only got one. Let's see. Yeah, I only got one Hirano, which is supposed to be good. I don't want that to be high, right? Okay, choose my tribe. Black Furies. A reputation for opposing injustice and escalating conflicts. After joining the Black Furies, a fog spirit had granted me a gift, the Curse of Aeolus. A thick, eerie fog that obscures sight and unnerves those within it. Okay, right off the bat, seems like I want to get this. The Bone Gnawers. Counterculturalists who uncover what is hidden. Secrets, passwords, and anything that provides useful and sometimes not so useful information. After joining the Bone Gnawers, a concrete elemental had granted me a gift. Streets tell stories, the ability to hear any conversation within a set area as if I'm standing right next to them. Okay, that would be great with the persuasion skill. Glass Walkers. We value science and technology. We already know what that goes with. In this new digital era that brought with it new spiritual life, we are essential. After joining the Glass Walkers, a shadow spirit had granted me a gift. Doppelganger, the ability to transform into another human or werewolf. Shadow Lords. Power and cunning. Might is what matters most in the fight against the Wyrm. After joining the Shadow Lords, a pattern spider had granted me a gift. Gios, the ability to issue a command that cannot be ignored, forcing the person to perform an action. Okay. I might have to do Shadow Lords now. Silver Fangs, strategists and leaders, the self-styled aristocracy of the Garou. Ilona's tribe as well. I had been in line to lead my Sept back in Afghanistan, but that had fallen apart when we had left. After joining the Silver Fangs, a falcon spirit had granted me a gift, the Silver Compact. An ancient compact is invoked, and protection is received from the otherwise hostile spirits. I like Silver Fangs. Okay, I like Shadow Lords. And I also like the Bone Gnawers. Oh, well, not that one. Which one was it? Was it the Glass Walkers? Well, I like all of them. Yeah, the Black Furies. Okay, so Black Furies, Shadow Lords. Black Furies. And you know, I'm always about getting rid of injustice and such, so but I do feel like the Curse of Aeolus would help out a lot, because that means I wouldn't have to change into my really, really powerful form. I could just change into the monstrous wolf form and take people out left and right in that fog. So yeah, let's go with the Black Furies. Your tribe is the Black Furies. You have received the gift of Curse of Aeolus. One aspect in particular had attracted me. There was one aspect in particular that had convinced me to join the Black Furies. Opposing injustice. Opposing injustice, we fought those who sought to trample others under their feet. Drawing my gaze away from the other Garou, I followed Ilona across the cairn, passing the very heart of the Colosseum in which rested a remnant of the Sept's former cairn from before the war. The intricately carved black marble capital of a Romanesque column whose bracken, jagged edge had been thrust into the ground. Above Gaia's soul could be read a line of Old Polish that had been inscribed heavily into the stone. De ut ad prabrusa ati puzawa. Let me work while you rest. For me, it always meant one thing. We were defenders, we were companions. I guess we were defenders. We were defenders. We protected Gaia from the ravages of the Wyrm. Then the vision disappeared, reality returning as I realized Ilona had been addressing me. She was calling me by my werewolf name, the one I had chosen after my first change. Zahal, meaning moon of a far-off planet. Koi, meaning powerful. Menu, meaning afterworld. Parisa, meaning benevolent spirit. And Azadeh, meaning liberated and free. So either Zahal or Azadeh. I'm gonna say Azadeh. Samira Azadeh Ramani. I like that. Azadeh meaning liberated and free. I had set a fierce goal for myself, to save my country and my people. It had been a long time since I had heard that name. This will increase my Harano. It filled me with a sense of comfort. It fit me perfectly and described who I was, even now after everything. You brought Khadijah's package then? Khadijah must have texted her earlier. Pulling it out of my bag, curiosity rose in me at once. I handed it over. Yeah, don't get involved. My curiosity must have been evident when I handed it over because a small smile appeared on her face. I imagine you would like to know what's inside. Taking the box in one hand, Ilona deftly opened it with a single slash of her dark green painted fingernail, revealing the contents. A severed finger, perhaps once human, it had become pure steel of a molten dark bottle blue with tiny razor-sharp edges like those of a knife jutting out indiscriminately around it. Why did Khadijah have that? I asked in horror. I had sent Khadijah after a lesser Bane presence that had been sensed in the city, Ilona explained. She had tracked it down and slain it, sending me this for us to examine. She held it out towards me. What are your impressions of it? A Bane presence. Bane, the malignant spirit of the Wyrm. Okay. Kind of like one of the dead three from, whatchamacallit? Baldur's Gate. There's something on it. I pointed out the small specks of blood on it, but Ilona seemed disinterested as she responded. Undoubtedly the creature's own. I shook my head. No, it's from something else. She was instantly alert as she asked. Human? Werewolf? Not human, I responded slowly, examining it further. It's definitely some sort of spirit, though. Ilona looked interested in this information as we scrutinized it, but for now, nothing further could be learned. As Ilona placed it into a pouch, the fingers seemed to emanate with a final pulse of dark energy before she secured it with a snap. I wonder if this all could have something to do with the Wyrm spirit I encountered earlier. Ilona's astute gaze bored into me. You seem like you have something to say. I told her about the Wyrm spirit. Earlier on my way here, there was a Wyrm spirit. Shock stamped across her strong features as I told her all about the spirit I had encountered earlier. Ilona stood silent in contemplation, breaking in at least to slowly say, "This is becoming a worrying pattern now, when combined with yesterday's death and the recent accusations." Death? Who died? The words were forced out of my mouth as a risking wave of tangled memories pushed in on my mind. I took a deep breath. I calmed myself as I listened intently. One of the Garou, Ilona said, as a pained sadness flitted across her face. "We think it was by a Wyrm spirit. The one Khadijah defeated? Possibly." Ilona shrugged, her brows knitting together in momentary uncertainty. "Hopefully. Right now, one of the Glasswalkers is investigating it, so we should know more soon." "What about the accusations?" I asked Ilona about the accusation as she hesitated. "There have been rumors of attacks happening. Some feel the Wyrm is responsible. Although the Wyrm has always been a problem in Warsaw, what is happening now feels unprecedented. And as fast as we destroy the lesser Wyrm spirits, others appear in their place," Ilona said wearily. "What do you think is causing it?" I asked curiously. "Perhaps a greater Wyrm spirit. There's no definite proof, but something is certainly manipulating all the spirits. To what end?" She shrugged. "I cannot say for certain." Before I could ask more, another Garou came up to speak with her as she excused herself. I felt something stirring within me. Okay, I have no Hirano now. For the first time in a long time, I felt a faint excitement stirring within me as I mulled over what she had told me. I lingered for a few moments, hoping to learn more, but when it became obvious Ilona would be busy for quite some time, I decided to just ask Victoria tonight instead. On my way out, I spied some equipment near a corner of the cairn that was kept for the use of all Garou. Items of healing, weapons, armor. I mean, I guess I'm pretty strong in my own right, so I may not need any weapons or armor. Then again, it's better to have it and not need it. So maybe I should at least get some armor? I was hoping that if I had medicine, then I would just kind of know how to heal myself right off the bat. But I guess I would need items for that too. So then maybe with the medicine skill, I would just be more effective with it. See, these are the things I think about with RPGs. But it's also, since this is an interactive novel, then it's like, how does this work? How do these game mechanics work? But so far, things seem pretty straightforward. Unlike certain choice of games where you can have very simple things where it's like you have a meter, and if you have, more than 50% in this, then you're probably going to be successful in a choice, but then you might need 60 for another one or 70 for another one, and so on and so forth. But interactive novels are a little different, especially when I can't necessarily see how things are going to play out, and if it depends on certain decisions and such. So yeah, I'm going to go with the theory that I don't necessarily need items of healing. It will just help me heal more. So instead, I will get weapons or armor. And in this case, I'm just going to get armor because I feel like that would kind of offset not getting any items of healing. Armor. A bulletproof vest would be a bit too heavy to carry, but the Sept had a wide array of protective amulets for use against spirits. Amulet of protection, a talisman that protects against foes. Items can only be used once. Okay. Maybe I should have got a weapon then. As I neared the entrance, the door slammed open as a Garou burst into the cairn, his overwhelming presence, accentuated by a fierce scowl that highlighted sharp features, instantly drew the eyes of everyone in this room. Drazic Skarzinski. Drazic, a charming and ruthless native Warsawsian, hailing from a wealthy family, leader of the Morning Wolf Father Pack. He was known as Ojisik of the Shadow Lords, a horn of the Morning Wolf Father Pack. Okay. A Shadow Lord, a native Rosarian from one of the wealthy families, head of the Morning Wolf Pack. I'll just say head of the Morning Wolf Pack. Head of the Morning Wolf Father Pack. While packs were supposed to accept everyone, the members of Andraz's pack tended to mainly be of Polish descent. Ilona alone continued to pointedly ignore him as he strode angrily up to her, the sunlight casting an ethereal glow upon his blonde head as if anointing him as its avenging angel. Whereas Ilona was quiet still with the air of a 5-star general, Andraz's had a careless charisma and ruthless recklessness that had led to his becoming leader of the Wolffather Pack at a young age. He was everything a werewolf should be. His methods were brutally efficient. I was wary of him. I'll just say his methods were brutally efficient. While he was a famed fighter, his methods were brutally efficient. I had heard rumors of how he had dealt ruthlessly with any worm spirit who stood in his way, a trait many admired in this Sept. Ilona, his voice was smooth while underlying contempt as she slowly turned to face him. Why have you not taken action yet? What was going on? What was going on? Taking action against what? Ilona's icy voice cut through the cavernous room. As I mentioned earlier, I cannot do anything without proof. Andrazic's blue eyes grew calm with a rigid fury. Ever since these refugees arrived in this country, there had been report after report of them attacking Polish citizens. I interrupted him in disbelief. How do you know it's the refugees? Oh great, we're unfriendly with him. How do you know it's the refugees? My voice was disdainful. Andraz's turned to me, contempt in his eyes as he caught sight of me, but a charming smile plastered on his face. Ah, Samira, our very own refugee. Perhaps you could shed some light on what exactly your countrymen have been doing here. His light words seemed to hold an underlying meaning. They haven't been doing anything, which you would know, as apparently you don't have any proof. What I know is that if Emmerich had not been investigating them, he would be alive right now. His blue eyes blazed as I stared at him in confused horror. But before I could respond, Ilona interrupted. That's enough, Andraz's. Emmerich's death is still under investigation, but what we do know is that it certainly was not caused by a refugee. Now, until you do have any definite proof of their wrongdoings, her tone implied she thought this unlikely, then I consider this issue as dropped. With an air of frigid finality, Ilona turned her back on Andraz's, indicating the meeting was over. Andraz's momentarily looked furious before he calmed himself with a frightening suddenness as he gave a small mocking bow of his head. And that is what our leader commands. As Andraz's turned away, I caught a glimpse of his defiant bright blue eyes that indicated that while he may have acknowledged Ilona's authority this time, there would be trouble in the future. The other Garus seemed to be awkwardly looking anywhere but at us as a hushed silence fell over the cairn after Andraz's had left. What the hell was that about? I'm sure I can guess why, but oh well, yeah. Let's go with Emmerich was dead. And I'd known him very well, just that he was a glass walker. While a part of me was reluctantly moved that Andrade seemed to care so much about him, I still wondered why on earth did he think the refugees were involved. I wanted to ask Alona, but as I glanced down at my phone, I noticed with a start that my job at Apocalypsa would be starting soon. Making my way towards the entrance, I turned to close the doors behind me when the ancient stone at the cairns caught my gaze once again. This time I found myself unable to look away as a vision filled my sight. A vision of war. A rune, a vision of war. Gleaming eyes of werewolves past and present shone from the shadows as howls of raging glee filled the Colosseum, crying echoes telling of the fight against the Wyrm, of fervor to Mother Gaia. I became caught up in their rage. Oh crap. The vision wrapped around me with a slow, briny wave of intoxicating hope as it swirled before my gaze. And then, with a muffled stillness, the door shut me out and the vision vanished. I need to calm down just a little bit. Hurrying through the darkening streets of Warsaw across the cobblestone roads, I neared Apocalypsa, the bar owned by Khadijah's girlfriend, Victoria. The blazing lights and loud crowds of the pubs and restaurants that lined wide streets gave way entirely to dark shadows as I ducked around the corner of a building onto a long, narrow alleyway. At the end, blood-red bricks formed the outline of an enormous wolf upon the wall, beneath which a solid black cast iron door stood firm, practically blending in with the alleyway at night. Near the entrance lingered a group of drunken, middle-aged men. At first I thought they were Garou, but as I neared I saw they were humans, no doubt returning from the football match and stopping to urinate in the alleyway. Catching sight of me, they began to wolf whistle, the irony of which was not lost on me. Of course, hooligans, they're everywhere. Let's just do some intimidation to get them to back off, hopefully. Back off, the fierce growl in my voice caused them to quiet down and slink away. I turned to go, but one man grabbed my arm. Judging by the noxious smell of his breath, he had clearly been too drunk to know what was happening around him. Looks like it's just you and me. The slurred, lascivious tone made me shudder. I tried to shove him off, but he just gripped tighter. Didn't you come to this country to be a whore, or are you going to try to convert us? He laughed raucously as rage suffused through me with a wrenching ferocity. See, this is why. This is why I could not be a werewolf. There will be problems. Let's see. Should I shapeshift? I mean, I do kind of need to get rid of some of this rage. Yeah, let's shapeshift. Let's just go to Glabra. It's strong enough to intimidate, to lift heavy things without breaking a sweat. Yeah, let's do that. I was Glabra, the near-human form. I felt my muscles spasm as they rearranged themselves. My jaw cracked and my mouth filled with blood. I clenched my fists and claws drove into my palms. When I rose, panting and sweaty, I was more than human. I was Glabro, wolfish, strong, scary. I towered above him. I towered above him now as I had lightly twisted my now bulging muscular arm free of his grasp. Even in his drunken state, he seemed to sense that the tables had turned as fear blanched the haze from his face. I feel like if I punch this guy, I am going to kill him. Then again, I feel like if I do any of these, I'm probably going to kill him. Let's just punch him in the face and I hope he doesn't die. But if he dies, he dies. I punched him in the face. His jaw crumpled in, the blow throwing him several feet back into the alley wall where he slowly slumped to the ground. My breath came in short bursts, the adrenaline still coursing through me. I shapeshifted back. Good, that brought it down by almost half. Victoria was going to be pissed. As the rage abated, I realized I should probably tell Victoria I had just beat up some guy outside her bar. A conversation I was not looking forward to. I sighed as I turned towards the black iron door, opening it up. As I opened the black iron door, I stepped inside, heading down the dimly lit stairway into Apocalypsa. A Gothic-style bar lined the wall immediately in front of the entrance. The vibrant, multicolored liquids on the blackwood shelves behind glowing in the dim light that softly illuminated the place. Cast iron stools and tables lined the wide space, which would soon be filled with the rowdy, inebriated Garu who came to party at Apocalypsa. At the far end, an archway led to labyrinthian hallways in which were tucked small, secluded rooms where the Garu could conduct tribe business. The Black Furies rarely came there. The Black Furies were rarely found here, often preferring to be out amidst the action. But when they did come, they often bought me a drink with a rousing toast. To them, my Hirano was a weakness that deserved compassion, and they fully believed the time would come when I joined them in the fight once more. Above the bar itself hung small, faded marionettes suspended from the ceiling that smiled eerily down at the bar patrons. The place certainly had character. Yeah, sure, let's go with that. The place certainly had character. The Garu who came to the city often recognized me as the bartender at that bar with the creepy puppets. The night was still early, and the bar was fairly empty aside from Alexander, my pack leader, a few Garu I vaguely recognized, and Victoria, who nodded as she finished mixing a pint for Pat, or Dr. Patrizia Myers as she was formerly known, an intense, white blonde, goth-looking woman who was sitting at the bar. I had befriended Pat when I was studying in Warsaw and reconnected with her after I had returned. Now, I don't know what happened at the end of Shadows of New York or anything like that, but outside of the white hair, this does kind of remind me of the main character from there. It also kind of reminds me of one of the other vampires. I can't remember her name, but she was Malkavian, and I really thought the little twist with her was kind of cool. Yeah, her whole deal was pretty cool. Quarters in New York had a lot of interesting things in it, a lot of cool parts about it, but just as a game, it just wasn't good. But I really did enjoy Shadows of New York from what little bit that I did play, and I really do need to finish it. Let's see. I am just going to say I waved at her. I waved at her. She waved back with a subdued smile and troubled eyes as I ducked behind the bar. The back was crowded with cardboard boxes and supplies, and I had to shove a few out of the way to grab my apron from its hook. Pulling it on, I heard Victoria join me. Her London accent seemed especially thick today as she regarded me with concern. "Not like you to be late," she leaned against the wall, her tall, slender model's body somehow managing to make it look elegant. "What's going on?" I told her about the men. There were some drunken assholes out back. She was instantly alert, her dark brown eyes narrowing as she asked me what had happened. I told her about the injured man. She's neutral with me. I may have beat one up. He's okay though, I think. For fuck's sake, Samira. Why the bloody hell did you do that? Did anyone else see you? Just him. I shook my head. Just the one. Well, that's good at least. Her gaze softened. Come on, we better get started. No little mini game or something like that. Oh yeah, that's definitely not the chick from whatchamacallit, Shadows of New York. Another wild night at Apocalypsa, mixing drinks and serving the rowdy Garu. I could bring Pat and Alexander their drinks, or take a short break with Victoria amidst the loud music and boozy chaos. So I wonder if this is going to be like the other games and these are going to lead to missions. Um, Let me talk to Pat. Heavy rock music blasted in the background as I poured another beer for Pat. Handing it to her, she pounded it down before letting out a deep exhale as she heavily set the now empty glass back in front of me. What's that, your fourth beer? Oh no, I'm honestly impressed, but should I be worried? She let out a sharp, surprised exhale of laughter before shaking her head as her eyes dimmed once more. I leaned on my elbows facing Pat. Okay, tell me what's going on. Pat swirled the heavy glass easily in her slim hand, staring down at it moodily. I don't suppose you've heard about Emmerich. I recall the name Andrazic had said earlier as my heart dropped. The Garu who was killed? Pat's glossy eyes turned dark. That's the one. He was a glasswalker and a friend of mine. I have zero Harano. God, I'm so sorry, Pat. She just nodded morosely, taking another heavy sip before continuing. Pat leaned in closer to me, her expression serious. We're pretty sure his death was caused by a bane. A bane? I asked in confusion, recalling that Andrazic had mentioned his death had something to do with the refugees. Samira, Victoria's voice carried over the noise as I turned to see her motioning to the gathering swarms of waiting customers. Sorry, Pat, I've got to get back to work, I said distractedly. Wait, before you go. She hesitated for a moment, then plowed ahead. I really need some help with this. Do you think you can meet me tomorrow at Lazinki Park? I'll think about it? Possibly, I'll think about it. Her face filled with relief. Thank you, Samira. If you can't, I completely understand. Just let me know tomorrow morning, okay? A gang of Garu began yelling at me for a round of beers, and I quickly agreed to text her the next day before hurrying back over. Okay, so that's one down. Let's talk to Alexander. Because he's supposed to be our pack leader, right? Balancing a drink carefully through the wild, carousing crowd, I made my way towards the back of the bar with Alexander, where Alexander sat alone at one of the tables. His long navy blue overcoat blended in with the shadows while his eyes were fixed on the book in his hand, only looking up when I brought him his Cosmopolitan. The first time he had ordered his drink choice had surprised me, but his disdainful expression when I had questioned it had instantly shut me up. I had joined his pack when I first came to Warsaw. Choose your patron. My God, this is a lot more than the vampires get. Let's see. The Baleful Otter pack was known for being fun-loving and mischievous, but coordinated savage fighters in battle. The Arcane Lynx. The Arcane Lynx pack was notable for its fierce independence and determination. The Immortal Peacock. The Immortal Peacock pack members were confident, bordering on arrogance, with a penchant for skillful tactics. Huh. I think I'll go with the Baleful Otter pack. Fun-loving and mischievous, but coordinated savage fighters in battle. Yeah, let's go with that. Seemingly cute and playful, otters could demonstrate a coordinated savagery and a desire for revenge if one of their kin had been hurt. Alexander had only been leading the pack for a few months when I had joined. Although his features appeared mostly Korean, Khadija had told me that he was half Polish and had spent his entire life here in Warsaw. He intrigued me. Did I just lose glory for that? I think it was at 3. He intrigued me. He had always seemed set apart from the other Garu with his cool, collected appearance. Yet I had caught glimpses of a fierce rage in his blue eyes, which made me feel that perhaps he was the same as the rest of us. Alexander indicated the seat next to him, interrupting my thoughts. Do you have a moment? Yes, of course. As my pack leader, I could not really deny a direct request. I glanced briefly at the bar, but Victoria seemed to have it covered for now as I sat down. Leaning in slightly, his tall frame half bent over the table, he began speaking in a low tone as he got straight to the point. There's been some trouble within the Sept recently, a divide that has only worsened in the past few months. Ilona has asked me to investigate further, and she suggested you may be able to help as well. Help how? I asked cautiously. Most Garou have already explicitly or implicitly chosen a side, but you have not. So who exactly is causing this divide? I asked, although I cynically thought that I had a fairly good idea of who it might be. Alexander's black eyes momentarily flared with a hint of some emotion I could not quite place as he coolly answered, I'm assuming you know of Andrazic Skarzinski. Unfortunately, I said irritably. Alexander raised his eyebrows. You don't like him? Sure, let me get that rage up by 1. Of course not. I responded angrily as I told him of the events of earlier. Alexander leaned forward, a piece of his dark, silky hair falling across his face as he spoke. Listen, Samira, I believe that your particular help in this matter will be invaluable. Before I could respond, an intoxicated Garou stumbled by, bumping into her chair as his drink splashed all over the ground. He looked down at it morosely before drunkenly careening off. Thankful for the interruption, I stood up. I should probably get back to work, I said hastily. Can I let you know later? Alexander nodded. Of course, although I must caution that time is of the essence. Please let me know by tomorrow morning, at the latest. I quickly agreed before squeezing my way back through the raucous masses of Garou to the bar. Am I only going to have one choice of where I can go tomorrow? Despite myself, I could not resist casting a final glance back at Alexander. His features, usually filled with an aloof confidence, now appeared startlingly fierce, as his intense blue eyes stared unseeing across the crowded room. Okay. And now, last but not least, we have Victoria. Another wild night in Apocalypse. Yep, okay, same thing there. During a lull in the madness of the night, I managed to grab a short break. Leaning back against the counter, I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, feeling the cool steel press into my lower back. Victoria ignored me. Victoria walked past, ignoring me. I wondered if she was mad about earlier as she headed to the end of the bar, further from me, and started to mix herself a drink, knocking back a huge gulp. After a few moments, she joined me, letting out an overdramatic sigh. I just can't seem to stay mad at you, can I? She grinned at me as I returned it, feeling a sense of relief. Victoria looked out over the crowded bar, her brow furrowing slightly. You know, something seems off tonight. She gave a quick shake of her head. Not even tonight, really. The past few months, things have been really strange. Like Furies. Anything you want to deal with? I was instantly on alert, but Victoria shook her head. No, it's nothing definite, just a general feeling. You know, I also can't help wondering if it has something to do with the Triot. Triot? The Triot are the 3 cosmological forces of the universe: the Wyrm, the Weaver, and the Wild. Once equal, chaos now reigns with the Wyrm and its ascendants. I think the Weaver is the spider stuff, and I hate spiders, so yeah. Of course, we know that since the Wyrm became ascendant, everything has been off the rails, and in the city especially, the Wild has always had less of a hold. She paused, but even the Weaver, whose spirit of order typically thrive in the city, has seemed different recently. The Weaver, manifestation and symbol of order and pattern. You think it's the Weaver? I asked as she hesitated. Perhaps. It just feels like there's been too much order and structure. If that even makes sense. Not really, but I nodded regardless. And she hesitated, avoiding my gaze. I think it's centered around all the recent changes in the city. I have high rage. You mean the refugees? You're really blaming them? My tone was angry and clipped as she shook her head vehemently. No, of course not. But something changed in the city within the past 5 years or so, during the Syrian crisis and with what's happening now. I think the Wyrm is doing what the Wyrm does, taking advantage of human greed and cruelty and using it to cause further division. And the government with the Garou in Beloiza Forest. The forest was weird, so that could be a possibility. But we'll just say with the Garou because that seems to be the main thing going on. An uncharacteristic frown appeared on Victoria's face. What makes me most convinced that things are especially bad with the Wyrm is the Garou. There's been something really off about them. Before I could ask more, a customer approached the bar, drunkenly leaning against it as they began loudly singing the Shots song. Victoria pushed herself off from the bar. All right, enough of the doom and gloom. We've got people to serve. Her usual cheerfulness returning as she headed over to help him. But I could not shake it off so easily. Well, I only got one Hirano, so that's fine. As the night slowed down, only a few inebriated Garou remained half propped up at the bar. I was pouring vodka into a glass when I heard a sudden commotion near the front door. A grim-looking police officer appeared at the bottom of the stairs, staring disapprovingly around the bar as Victoria headed over to him. I felt my body start to shake as for a second it was like I was back in the forest, back in Afghanistan. I inadvertently clutched my arm fiercely, trying to still the shaking. Hey, are you okay? A tentative hand placed itself on my shoulder. I looked up to see Alexander and Pat close by, twin looks of concern on their faces. I calmed myself, since my Hirano was low. I took a deep breath. Yeah, it's fine. Thanks. I turned to see Victoria exchanging a few words with the policeman, his expression unchanging. Eventually, he at last left the bar. Victoria approached me. She drew me to a corner of the bar. The policeman was telling me about the man you injured. Thank God for the delirium, because fortunately the man didn't remember exactly what had happened. Listen, Samira, she shifted awkwardly. How about you take a week off? She waved off my startled question. This is not a punishment. You only got one other shift anyways, and I can easily get it covered. You've had a lot going on, and I think a break will do you good. But I want to work. It's the only thing that distracts me. Victoria crossed her dark arms. I love that you like this job, but I'm insisting on this. Plus, if that bastard does happen to remember anything, then at least you can be out of the line of fire. I reluctantly agreed. She smiled at me reassuringly. Only for 1 week, I promise. Delirium, the panic and memory loss suffered by humans who observe something that reveals an individual as a Garou. Huh. Okay. As we began to close the bar, I recalled Pat and Alexander's proposals, feeling my heart briefly lighten. Perhaps that would be enough to occupy my mind while I was away from the bar. Perhaps enough to chase away the nightmares. And I got rid of my Hirano again. From home to home. As I lay in bed once more, Luna's light streamed gently through the open window while my mind churned with the events of the day. I tried to calm the thoughts, to perhaps even fall asleep to a dreamless night for once, but it was not to be, for as the clamoring thoughts turned to a murmur that ebbed and flowed, it was not sleep that took their place, but a memory. Where are we going? Tariq asked. I looked at him in surprise, shifting the weight of the baby in my small arms. After our village had been bombed by the Taliban, wielding weapons gifted to them years earlier by the United States, we had left the rubble of our home and the corpses of our parents and fled. My older brother should have made the decision from then on as the man of the family, but he had been in shock, barely speaking since that night. I had been forced to carry our younger brother Kazim across the rugged northern terrain. We're going to safety, I said with false confidence. I didn't really know where we were going exactly, but I sensed somehow it would protect us. Tariq just nodded, as if my answer had been enough to feed his momentary glimpse of clarity before subsiding once more into silence. I continued onward, the terrain becoming harsher and steeper as my thin legs carried us over rocky steps that turned into hills that turned into mountains. As we crested a peak, I drew in a sharp breath. The view momentarily painted a picture over my inner turmoil as I stared in awe at the valley before us. Verdant fields caught between two mountain ranges of stone and snow rubble. An azure river that matched the daytime sky ran lazily through it. A small village nestled alongside the flowing waters. Walnut trees and apple orchards dotted the valley floor, the fragrant scent of fruits faintly perfuming the pure mountain air. There, the place that was calling me. Home, safety, power, or family. Let's say well, nowhere is probably safe. There is power there, perhaps. But let's just go with home. I got honor for that. Home. Where I belonged. Where I think I had always belonged. I knew that within there was a place I could finally call my home. Turning excitedly to share the good news with Tariq, I looked around at the now empty plateau. Where did he go? I continued onwards. As if in a trance, I continued onwards into the valley. Perhaps he was on his way there too. As I searched, I felt a sudden emptiness in my arms. I stared down at the place where Kazim had just lain. I looked frantically around, dropping to my knees, scratching in the rubble, when the ground below me lit up with a sickly glow as I turned my head to stare up at the night sky. The starlit galaxy above transformed before my eyes with a frizzen of static, like a glitched out computer screen. What is that? As the stars began buzzing around like thousands of tiny flies, circling the ragged, gaping black hole where the full moon had previously resided. Where did Luna go? A part of me wondered who Luna was while the others stayed focused on the black hole as a faint, rasping, scraping noise rattled ominously through the skies. A single insectoid claw curled delicately out of the black circle as a terror filled my heart, the fear grasping frantically at my mind in screaming waves. More claws emerged, embedding themselves into the night sky as with a horrific screech, a massive inhuman face filled the unnatural gap. It stared down directly at me from the sky above as a wide, malevolent grin spread from end to end, revealing violently red, sharpened teeth, too many for its mouth. I stood my ground. It's not real. It's not real. I stood my ground as it rushed towards me, the creature's carapace of matted black fur writhing as it opened its maw. Violently red teeth readied to swallow me whole, when with a blinding suddenness it disappeared, leaving only the night sky. As the sky faded to my softly moonlit room, I stared up at the ceiling, feeling a strange sense of calm. Something had changed. Oh, that's the end? I was really getting into it. Okay. Thank you for playing the demo of Werewolf the Apocalypse Purgatory. The Samira you played had low Hirano. Despair prowls like a predator seeking its prey at the edges of your mind, but so far you've managed to keep it far at bay. The offers of Pat and Alexander provide a glimmer of hope that perhaps you can be rid of this despair once and for all. All right. Okay, so I really enjoyed that. It definitely seemed like it got off to a much more engaging start than, of course, Quarteries of New York. Quarteries of New York just was not good. But it seems like everything that has come after that has been very good. Again, I really enjoy Shadows of New York. I've even enjoyed some of the choice of games that have came out. I think I played Parliament of Knives. I really just skimmed through it because it was just so much reading, and I just was trying to get through it, and I don't remember much from it, but I do remember it was pretty good. Night Road, I think it was pretty good. I do remember playing a little bit of it. But yeah, I'm really glad that we're starting to see more World of Darkness things, because again, I've always been really interested in the lore. I've wanted to know more about it, wanted to see more games, just more media and stuff like that, read more stories about it, because the only knowledge that I really have of the World of Darkness stuff is just from the stuff that I've read from like the Wikipedias and different videos that I've seen, little short TikToks and stuff like that, talking about lore moments and stuff, things about Cain and stuff like that. But other than that, I don't really know too much about it. But yeah, this is really intriguing. And actually, I may just go ahead and play the first game. I'm thinking, from what I remember seeing about the first game in this series, is that it's not connected to this. Like, I mean, it's werewolves, but beyond that, I don't think it's actually connected to this. I think this is a different character, different place, etc., etc. But yeah, so far the writing is pretty good and everything is pretty good. I really love the art style. That's another reason why I love these. The art style in this stuff is very good and it's very engaging, and it really keeps you interested in things. You know, I love reading. I love interactive novels. I have tons and tons of choice of games and stuff like that. But sometimes it's very hard to stay engaged in that stuff when you have to constantly look at just words all the time. And, you know, again, like my favorite choice of game is 10 Star. It's over 1,000,000 words. And I love that game to death, but my God, it's a lot of reading and there's no pictures or anything like that. So it is nice to have something that is very engaging, that has music and everything else involved. So yeah, I like this and I would love to see more. I hope there's a mage thing that's going to come out at some point too, because the mage stuff, from what I remember, was just really trippy and really cool. And I would really like to see some more of that stuff. So yeah, and again, if you know, you guys want to see me turn around and play the previous game, then yeah, I can go ahead and get that, because I'm really intrigued by this now. So if you like the video, like the video. If you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe. I have a lot of things on the channel and I'll have many more things in the future. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave it in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one. See ya.